Last season was about as good as it gets for an undrafted rookie. Craig Porter Jr. was given an immediate opportunity to prove his worth, and he did it by earning a standard NBA contract by the All-Star break. The 6'1" guard dispelled all concerns about his athleticism, and his natural feel for the game instantly translated to the big leagues. Porter was a smooth operator in the first half of his rookie season, dissecting teams with heads-up plays and occasional scoring outbursts. And when Darius Garland fractured his jaw in December, the Cavaliers were able to rely on Porter to pick up some of the slack. His impact was felt all across the floor, averaging 7 points, 4 assists, and nearly 4 rebounds in just 18 minutes per game during that stretch. Porter's calling card was his reliability, but the one major thing holding CPJ back from being one of the NBA's premier backup point guards is a reliable three-point jumper. See, by the second half of Porter's rookie season, teams began covering him in a heavy drop, playing way below the screens and ignoring him off the ball. Some of his best moments during the first half of the year came when Porter was using his athleticism to beat defenders and collapse the defense. He'd either create his own shot or find an open teammate, but those opportunities disappeared once teams stopped defending him closely. This heavy drop really put a limit on what Porter could provide. It's one thing for a player like Giannis Antetokounmpo to play against the heavy drop coverage because he can use that space as a runway to destroy you at the rim. But Porter doesn't have the size to take advantage of those runways, and so we saw him repeatedly get lost in the trees during the back half of his rookie season. The reality is the only way Porter can take another step forward is by developing into a better three-point shooter. Porter finished his rookie season with a total of 12 three-pointers, 11 of which were classified as open or wide open by NBA.com. That's obviously not going to cut it, and he'll have to improve as a pull-up shooter and reach a point where he at least warrants a closeout in order to reach his ceiling as a player. So let's take a step back and review what Porter does well and where he needs to improve. He's got a knack for reading the floor and making plays. We saw this all throughout his rookie season, where running an NBA offense just came naturally to him. And he's a good to great athlete. He might be undersized, but Porter was impressive with his quick first step and leaping ability. He's not Russell Westbrook or John Morant, but Porter certainly has an advantage in this department. And packaging that together, I'd say Porter was a solid finisher at the rim last season. He uses his body really well, and he actually shot above 60% at the rim and 50% in the non-restricted area of the paint, which puts him right on par with some of the better guards in the league. And so this makes for a great skill tree for an undrafted prospect to build from. If you're running down a checklist of what you'd expect from a backup point guard, then Porter is well on his way to checking all of those boxes. Of course, the largest obstacle remaining is developing that three-point shot, but I think we all get the point there. Still, even if Porter can expand his range, then I do think there's a path to him being a quality bench piece if he can address a few other minor concerns. Primarily, how much better can he get? Porter had the disadvantage of being an older prospect entering the draft, and that's likely a big reason he went unselected. And by the middle of his sophomore season, Porter will already be turning 25 years old. That's only 1 month younger than Darius Garland, who is entering his 6th NBA season. Now, Porter's not that old or anything, and it certainly suggests that he has a few years before reaching his peak, but it's important to keep in mind that NBA primes aren't universal. Just because most players hit their ceiling at 27 or 28 doesn't mean everyone does. And so there's really no guarantee that Porter has the capacity to improve over the next few years. It's possible this is just the player he's always going to be. But that's why this is an open-ended question, because if he can make any sort of leap as a three-point shooter, then Porter's ability to impact the basketball game increases in a big way. So I'll be very interested in seeing if Porter can make any tangible improvements next season. And obviously improving his three-point shooting and creating more advantages should be a goal, but the last thing we need to discuss is Porter's defensive viability. Now, I would say for the most part, Porter held his own defensively last season. Of course, he had the luxury of being on an elite defensive team that could cover him up, but even on an individual level, I thought Porter was an active defender who could disrupt passing lanes and stay in the right place at the right time. The real issue was in the latter half of the season when teams began to single him out. Opponents just got really comfortable putting their body into Porter and playing with their back to the basket, and this is something that might be tough for Craig to overcome at 6'1". It's just going to be really easy for teams to put him in a blender like this if he doesn't gain a little more muscle or become more disruptive with his hands to stop them from getting to this spot. Basically, we'll need to see him become more of a proactive defender and avoid getting put in these positions. And so wrapping all of this together, I would still project Porter to become a rotational player in the NBA at some point. I'm just not sure if it'll happen this season or with the Cavs, considering their glut of point guards. My opinion on this could change quickly if Porter starts drilling three-pointers or manages to develop into a high-impact defender. I think you can look at guys like Patrick Beverley, Jose Alvarado, or Gary Payton II as examples of undersized guards who found a way to change the game with their defense. Now, I wouldn't expect Porter to follow exactly in their footsteps. He's probably a much worse defender than all of those guys, but trying to carve out a niche on defense is obviously something Porter should look to develop, especially if that three-point shot isn't coming around anytime soon. And so that's my thoughts on Craig Porter Jr. I think he'll have every opportunity to play minutes this season, but it might take a while for him to find the ideal home in the NBA. It's a tough league for guys like Porter right now with so many high-scoring guards across the NBA, but his fundamental skills are as strong as any other backup, and so I feel confident he can build on that foundation. But what do you think about CPJ? Does he have a chance to be in the rotation this season, or are we still a few years away? Or do you think maybe he'd be better off on another team? This is a random thought, but I actually think Porter would look fantastic with San Antonio, where he could be paired with a floor-stretching big and force teams to defend him differently and pick and roll. There's no link to the Spurs or anything, it's just a random thought I had while making this video because I do think Porter's best fit will probably be outside of Cleveland, but please let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and help me out by dropping a like and hitting subscribe. The season is right around the corner and I can't wait to finally have some basketball to talk about. And with all that being said, go Cavs.